Okay, I wanted to talk to you guys today about our line plots, how we take information that we gather from either questionnaires or any other things. Like if you took 10 foul shots, made five, and you can get data, you collect data, and you can put it into a form called a line plot. But before you do the line plot, first you have to obtain the data. So I thank you guys for participating and answering the questions for me. And in this instance, what I'm going to talk about first is how many siblings each of you had, and you guys had answered those questions. From that data that you gave me through answering questions, we can take a look at everybody that participated and determine how many siblings say is the most common, how many siblings is the least common, things like that. So once we look at our data, and that is the results that you guys sent from answering the questions, we have what we're going to do. The first thing is we're going to take that information. We're going to create what we call a tally sheet. You guys have done tally sheets before for me if you've ever got a donut party and I write the donuts on the board and we go around the room, everybody tells me what kind of donut they want and I put a hash there. So this is the same thing. And before we could do our line plot, we need the tally sheet. So from the data that you provided me, we're going to go ahead and fill in the tally sheet. So with you guys, with that information, those of you that told me that you did not have any siblings, so zero siblings, zero brothers and sisters, there were 3 of you. So I would put 3. So 3 of the people that responded had 0 brothers or sisters. Those of you that had 1 brother or sister, there was 12 of you. Now, you could put the numbers in like this if you want, or you could put hashes. So let me show you for number 2. Number 2, for 2 brothers or sisters, there were 6 of you that had that. You could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kind of more of your tally sheet. So you could either use whole numbers or you can use tallies that way. For 3 brothers or sisters, 11 of you said you had 3 brothers or sisters. So 11 of you there. Those of you that had 4 brothers or sisters, there was 2 of you. So I would put 2. I'm going to change this to a whole number so we don't get confused. Okay. Those of you that said you had 5 brothers or sisters, there was nobody. Nobody has 5 brothers or sisters. And nobody has 6 brothers or sisters. However, there was 1 person that had 7 siblings. So we would put 1. Nobody had 8 brothers or sisters, and nobody had 9 or more. So from the questions that you answered, I'm able to create a tally sheet based on how many of you had 0 brothers or sisters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So you can see that we have all of that there. So once I have that tally sheet, I can go ahead and make what is called a line plot. Now, my line plot will look, I think some of you have already seen these. It's going to represent all of my tallies. Even if there's 0, it will represent all of them. So I'm going to make my line plot starting with just a line. Then I'm going to take all my categories, 0 brothers, 1 brother, 2 brother, 3. So I'm going to put down here 0, 1, 2, 3 brothers or sisters, 4 brothers or sisters, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 or more. And that arrow means 9 or more. Okay, so there's my line plot that represents all the different categories that you answered on. Okay, now when I do my line plot, I have to let everybody know, because I'm going to mark the line plot based on the data. I need to know what each marking represents, and that's called a key. So I'm going to put my key where for every X that I put on my line plot, that means that's 1 person. So my key is X, let me do it this way, equals 1 student. The key is very important. You have to have your key so when we read your line plot, we know what you're talking about. So taking the data that I got from here, I asked myself, well, how many students had 0 brothers or sisters? And you would say to me, 3 people did. So at 0, I would put 3 X's because each X equals 1 student. So those of you that had 0 brothers and sisters, there was 3 of you. How about 1 brother or sister? There were 12 of you. So I need to put 12 X's there. I ran out of room, but it's still, you could see. So at 0 brothers and sisters, there were 3 people. At 1 brother or sister, there was 12 people. At 2 brothers and sisters, there would be 6. And each X represents how many students. So at those of you that had 2 brothers or sisters, there were 6 of you. And I'm going to complete the entire line plot based on my data from my tally sheet. So at 3, there was 11. Now, you normally would not run into that, but I kind of don't have enough room. And let's complete 4. There was 2 of you. At 5, nothing, 0. Nobody had 5 brothers and sisters, so I don't put anything there. I just leave it blank. 6, same thing. Nobody had 6 brothers and sisters. I leave it blank. 7, 1 person. 1 person had 7 brothers or sisters. Nobody had 8, and nobody had 9. So that's how we take our data, which is what you did for me. You answered my questions about your siblings. I put that data in a tally sheet based on the categories, 1 brother, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. From that data on my tally sheet, I was able to complete my line plot. Now, when you look at a line plot, that kind of organizes all this for you so that you don't have to like scan back and forth. I could look at this and I could say, what was the least common number of brothers and sisters? You would tell me, well, 5, 6, 8, or 9 or more, because nobody had that. That's the least common because nobody had it. If I say, what's the second least? You would say 7, because only one person had 7 brothers or sisters. If I said, how many brothers and sisters is the most common? You should be able to tell me that 1 brother or sister is the most common because there's 12 people, and 12, that's the most, right? And it's represented here as being the most, okay? So what I want you to learn in this video was taking data from the questions that you answered, putting them into tally sheets, kind of like we do with the donuts. You know, we take inventory of each category, and then we represent it on a line plot. All my categories are listed on the bottom: 0 brothers and sisters, 1 brother or sister, 2 brothers and sisters, and so on. And then we reference our tally sheet to put our X's that represent how many students had each number of brothers and sisters. There's a lot more that we can do with this. I'm going to go into this slowly with you, but for right now, looking at this line plot, you can answer questions like, who had the least amount? What was the least amount? Well, how many brothers and sisters is most common in the class? How many brothers and sisters are least common in the class? So for this lesson today, this is what I wanted you to learn. It's how to take tallies from information that was provided, and then using those tally marks and tally sheets to create a line plot, which is just organizing this data into more of a graphing format make it easier for someone to read.